Hello and welcome to Byju's Exam Prep IAS. A very warm good evening to everyone. I hope all of you are doing absolutely fine. I welcome you all to today's class of current affairs this week. So this is the weekly current affairs webinar. I hope all of you are doing absolutely fine. In this class, in the next couple of hours, we'll be discussing the most important current affairs which were in the news in the last week or so. Good evening, everyone. Those who have joined in, we'll wait for a couple of minutes. Let others also join in the class and then we'll begin. Thank you so much. Hello. Hi. Good evening. Hi, good evening. Hello. Perfect. So a lot of you have joined in. I hope my audio and the video both are working absolutely fine. You can hear me and you can see me properly. Now, without any further ado, let's go ahead with the agenda for the session today. As I discussed, this is a weekly current affairs webinar where we discuss some of the most important and relevant news stories for the UPSC examination. Before we go there, I hope all of you are aware that the Byju's Exam Prep IAS Prelims 2023 test series is going on. I hope all of you are participating in this. All of you are giving your weekly test and you have been scoring well. Whatever your score may be, make sure that you do not skip any of the tests. Make sure that you keep on checking your preparation as per the schedule so that you can get a hold of your rank, you can know your preparation as well. Now, these are the 8 topics that we will be discussing today that were in the news in the last few days. We will be starting our discussion with Iran that has decided to shut down its morality police. Then we'll talk about RBI's e-rupee. Now, e-rupee of RBI, or the digital currency, as you know, has been in the news not just in the past week, but it has been in the news even before that. So we'll be discussing that. The trials have rolled down in certain cities of India. We'll be discussing what is e-rupee. Then we'll be discussing about personality rights. As you know, in Delhi High Court, there was a case where Amitabh Bachchan had filed a case that his voice, his image should not be used without his permission. So the decision has come in his favor. We will be discussing what are personality rights. Then we'll be discussing the AIMS ransomware attack. As you know, AIMS, that is All India Institute for Medical Sciences, was under a ransomware attack for multiple days. We'll be discussing what is ransomware, how prepared is India to handle these kind of issues. Then we'll discuss same-sex marriage issue in India. Supreme Court, as you know, is hearing multiple petitions about same-sex marriage. What is the legal status of same-sex marriage in India? Where do we stand? What is the law? That is what we'll be discussing. Then we'll discuss the Kaziranga project. It's a small project between India and France. So we'll be discussing what exactly is that project, why is it in the news, and some important details about the Kaziranga National Park as well. Then we'll be discussing about the Great Indian Bustard. Again, a topic that comes in the news time and time again. This specifically is in the news because Supreme Court has taken keen interest in the conservation of the Great Indian Bustard. Supreme Court has asked the government of India whether is it possible to have a project Great Indian Bustard like we have Project Tiger for conservation of the Great Indian Bustard. And in the end, we'll also be talking about the Kuki Chin tribes. Why are they in the news? What is the connection between India and Bangladesh when it comes to the Kuki Chin tribes? Which is the state in India and northeast part of India that is the most affected by it? And why is it in the news? These are the 8 topics that we have in store for you. So without any further ado, let's begin with the very first topic that we have. Now, the first topic, the biggest topic that had made news across the entire world is that Iran has decided to shut down its morality police. Now, what is morality police? What is happening in Iran? I'm sure all of you are aware of it. So, a couple of months back, there was a very unfortunate incident in Iran. That is, Mahsa Amini, a young woman in Iran, 22 years old woman, was arrested by the so-called morality police because she was not wearing her hijab properly. After she was arrested, apparently she was beaten up, and after 72 hours, her dead body was discovered, and there were allegations that she lost her life because she was beaten up by the morality police. Now, this concept of morality police has thus come into the news across the entire world. Now, what exactly is this? What is happening? And why is it that Iran has finally decided to step back? So, just one day back, there was this news that Iran has decided to officially shut down its morality police because of the huge protests that are going on. So, over 2 months have passed, and in the entire country of Iran, there have been large scale protests against the government for various reasons. One demand of the protesters is to take back the morality police, but this is not the only demand. They're actually demanding a lot of other changes. Now, Iran is a very unique kind of a country. It runs in a very different type of a manner. Yes, there are elections in Iran, there's a democratically elected government, yet there's also a supreme leader of Iran. So, the division of power is very, very debatable in Iran. Now, Iran is a country that prides itself in running as per the Sharia law. Iran, thus, in the past few decades, had made sure that hijab should be made compulsory, not just hijab. Even the males in Iran were told specifically that there are only certain types of haircuts that you can actually have. Do you know that? In Iran, you can't have a haircut of your choice. They were told that these are the only haircuts that are possible and you cannot have any other haircut. There were many other restrictions that were put on common people in Iran. For all these restrictions, the responsibility to impose them, the responsibility to ensure that everyone is following them, that responsibility was given to this police called the morality police. Now, morality police had a lot of powers. They, as I said, were mainly responsible for ensuring that hijab is worn properly, that all other religious symbols are respected, that the Sharia law is practiced properly in Iran, and they had the power to arrest people as well if they did not abide by those restrictions that were imposed. They were only answerable to the supreme leader, the Ayatollah, and that is why they had all that power. There were many instances of this police actually arresting people and taking them into custody without any proof, without any evidence as well. In the local language, they were called Gasht-e-Irshad, or the guidance patrol. Gasht means to actually patrol, to go around the streets just to see everything is fine or not. That is called Gasht. Now, this morality police as such is not very old. It was established in 2006 itself. And as I said, the major responsibility of this morality police was to spread the culture of modesty and hijab, and they were given certain other powers as well, specifically to ensure that the laws with respect to how the Iranian government wants its people to conduct, they should be followed by the people across the country. As I said, they got all their powers because they were directly under the control of the supreme leader of Iran, that is Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, and that is why they had all this power. It's not that the police had only men. This morality police had men and female, both officers were present, and their control was not just over female hijab. As I told you, they were given other responsibilities as well. For example, men were given specific haircuts and they had to abide by that as well. Now, Iran's history has been very interesting. If you look at Iran's history, how the country has actually changed, it is very fascinating to see. Many of you might not even believe there was a time in Iran where wearing a hijab was actually banned. Can you imagine that? Now wearing a hijab is compulsory, but there was a time in Iran where wearing the hijab was actually prohibited. It was in 1930s when Iran decided that we want to westernize ourselves, we want to look like a liberal country. In fact, the government said that anyone wearing the hijab will not be allowed and hijab will be taken off. That was the Iran of 1930s. Now, that was an era where many people in Iran did not like it. Many conservative people thought that Iran is under the control of the Western world, especially the US. Till 1970s, this went on. Till 1970s, Iran was ruled by a monarchy that was controlled, or not controlled, but that was very close to the US. Against that, the conservatives, the people of Iran, thought that US is interfering in their country, and in 1979 there was a great Iranian revolution. In 1979 there was a great Iranian revolution. Now what happened in this revolution? In this revolution, Iran's monarchy was overthrown. The Shah of Iran, who was apparently under the US control, or not control, but under the US influence, he was removed, and Iran then became the Islamic Republic of Iran. Since then, since 1979, Iran has become a very conservative country. As I said, before 1979, there was a time when Iran was a very liberal country. It actually took a lot of pride in being like a Western country. But in 1979, all of that changed and Iran became a very, very conservative country. That was a time when Iranian authorities interpreted themselves the Sharia law, and they gave a lot of powers to the police to arrest anyone who did not abide by that law. The example of men's haircut, I already told you, it happened in 2010. All of this was done by the leaders of Iran because it did not want Western influence in their country. They did not want their people to be influenced by what is happening in Europe, in America. They wanted their people to have their own Iranian identity. And that is why we see all these changes introduced in Iran. As I told you, there was a time in Iran when actually wearing a hijab was prohibited. In 1936, under Reza Shah Pahlavi, who wanted to liberalize Iran, he actually announced that we will not allow anyone to wear a hijab in Iran, and anyone seen wearing a hijab, the hijab will be taken out. It was his son who then became the monarch of Iran, and then the revolution took place in 1979 when his son, that is Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, was removed, and the Ayatollahs, the supreme spiritual leader, they came to power in Iran. And since then, the Iran politics has changed considerably. Iran was made in Iran, hijab was made compulsory since then, specifically to ensure that Iran's national identity is seen as a conservative country. Iran's national identity should be seen as a country that is not following for Western influence, that is a country that is still abiding by its roots. That is the entire idea of today's Iran. Now that Iran's government has finally decided to abandon the morality police, do remember, there is no clarity on the law where it says that hijab would be taken away or it is still compulsory. The government has only said that the morality police will be taken away, but they have still not given a word on whether or not there would be any changes in the law that has made it mandatory for women to wear hijab. So don't interpret it by saying that hijab wearing is not compulsory anymore. The only change that has been announced, is that morality police in Iran will be shut down. Kind of question that you can expect here is, draw similarities and differences in secularism as followed in India and other nations. Now, this actually is a very interesting kind of a question. See, the word secularism is used all across the entire world. But remember, Indian secularism or secularism followed by any other country is very, very different. I'll give you an example. So India calls itself a secular country. France also calls itself as a secular country. However, both these secular countries are very, very different. For example, in India, secularism does not mean that the government will not make laws on religion. In France, the government says government is separate and religion is separate. Government will not do anything for religious activities. In India, it is the opposite. In India, we follow inclusive secularism. Inclusive secularism means in India, the government says we will make law for betterment of every religion. We will ban untouchability also. We will ban triple talaq also. We will ban sati also. We will ban child marriage also. So in India, secularism doesn't mean that government will be away from religion or government will be separate from religion. That is not the case. In France, on the other hand, the government says we are separate from religion. We have nothing to do with it. In France, they follow an exclusive model of secularism. They don't meddle with the religious affairs. In India, our secularism is inclusive. The government says we will make laws for every religion for everyone's betterment without any interference. Let me see a few doubts that have come up. One doubt that has come up is, what do you mean by conservative country? So conservatism is kind of an ideology which says that we don't want to change with times. So anyone who believes that, for example, our customs, traditions, rituals that have been followed for over 100, 200 years, we'll follow that. That's a conservative country. So I'll give you an example. Let's say about 50 years back or 100 years back, it was seen that women were not allowed to go out of their houses to work. 100 years back, in most of the families in India, it was very odd for women to go out of their house, or it was not even allowed that women will go out for education, right? They were not even allowed to go out to the school because they were thought that no, you be at home. So if you follow the same ideology, if you say that no, we will follow the same custom, even today women should not be allowed to get educated, even today women should not be allowed to go and work, that is called a conservative ideology. So conservative means when you want to just continue your traditions without changing with the time. That is a conservative country. That's an example of Iran. Not saying it is good or bad. It can be in various ways. It can be good, it can be bad also. For example, this example of women not getting into education can be a bad example. But there's a good example also. For example, let's say earlier, there was a time when people used to have joint families, respect their elders, did not used to spend a lot of time online. But now with changing times, people are changing, things are changing, the way they live their life, all of that is changing. So conservative simply means when you stick to your old way of living, stick to your old rituals. That is what you mean by conservative country. Okay, let me see if there's any other question. Okay, I'm getting a lot of questions on what is Sharia law. So Sharia law in very simple terms means when you run a country as per the religious teachings of Islam, that is called the Sharia law. So Sharia law basically in simple terms means when you run a country as per the principles, as per the ideals given in the Holy Quran, that is called the Sharia law. So Holy Quran tells how a country should work, how a government should run, what rights should be given to people, what rights should not be given to people. If you run your country according to that, that is called the Sharia law. There are different interpretations of it. Some people interpret in a different way and some other people interpret this in a different way. So that is how it works. Okay, I'll take one more question before we go ahead. One other question is, Iran is democratic or a despotic country? It's a mixture of two actually. So what has happened is in Iran, again, there are two power centers. One, Iran has democracy, people vote for their leader, that is separate. But on the other hand, Iran also has a supreme leader. The supreme leader called the Ayatollahs, they are called the spiritual leaders. So it's like in India, we have the president and the prime minister. The difference is president in India doesn't have a lot of powers. In Iran, similarly, there is a president and there is a Ayatollah. The Ayatollah is a supreme leader, spiritual leader, but they also have a lot of power. So the powers are divided between the two. One runs the government, that is a democratically elected government, and the other one makes sure that the country runs as per the Sharia law. So that is how the powers are divided. Perfect. Now, let's move on to the second topic that we have for you. The second topic that we have for today's webinar is RBI's e-rupee. Now, this is not a topic that has come up suddenly. This is a topic that has been in the news for some time now. Reserve Bank of India is introducing its own e-rupee, that is Central Bank Digital Currency, CBDC. It is the same thing. Let me just write it here for you. Central Bank's Digital Currency. This is called e-rupee. So e-rupee is being introduced by RBI. In very simple terms, it will be rupee transfer in a digital form. Now, you might say it is the same as UPI, but it is not the same as UPI. There are slight differences, and we'll discuss that as well. Now, RBI has actually launched the first phase. It is a testing phase of e-rupee in certain number of cities where some people will be given access to it. Now, what is e-rupee and how does it work? Let's try and understand that. So, it just like you exchange your rupee, just like you exchange your currency note, 5 rupee note, 500 rupee note, 100 rupee note, 200 rupee note. Similarly, without exchanging it physically, you can actually transfer it using your phone, scanning the QR code or transferring it from one wallet to other wallet. That, in very simple terms, will be the concept of e-rupee. Now, you can say, sir, this is the same as UPI. No, this is not the same as UPI. There are slight differences. See, in UPI, what is happening is, let's say I transfer my money to you from my wallet, from my UPI wallet to your UPI wallet. In the back end, the two banks have to work. In the back end, the banks have to settle this from one place to the other place. The bank's clearing system has to come on the board. Also, UPI would have certain other kind of applications as compared to e-rupee. Let me give you an example. In the future, it might happen that RBI or the government can control how will your rupee be used. I'll give you an example. Let's assume the government of India to the poor people gives a lot of subsidy. So government of India, let's assume, transfers rupees 100 to your bank account. Okay. Now the government of India says we are transferring rupees 100 to your bank account and we want you to use it to buy food. Okay. Now it might happen that rather than buying food, people will spend this 100 rupees to buy alcohol. They will buy this 100 rupees for or use 100 rupees for betting or something else. Government does not want that. But once the government has transferred the money to your account, they can't control how are you using the money. You understand this? If the government transfers 100 rupees to you, now government may say that you have to use it here, you have to use it there. But how are you using it? Government does not control it. You can use it for any purpose whatsoever. But with e-rupee, the government might be able to control that. The government might be able to ensure that this 100 rupee that is going to you as e-rupee will only be used for specific purposes. So for example, if this 100 rupee I am trying to transfer to my friend to buy alcohol, it will not happen. The transfer will not happen. It will only happen for the specific purpose that government send me the money for. Now, I am not saying this will happen. This is an idea that might happen in the future. This is why the countries around the world and not just India are introducing their digital currencies. I am not saying the government is doing it right now. Please don't write in the exam, government will be doing it right now. It might happen in the future because around the world, India is not the only country that is introducing digital currency. Many other countries are trying to do the same with the same kind of idea that in the future, the idea is that they can control how that specific money will be used. The other good idea, the other reason is, see, we never realize this, but printing of money is also costly. The currency notes that the government has to print, the RBI that has to transport currency notes from one place to the other place, all of that actually takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of expense from the side of the RBI and the government also. Then you have to store your wallet, it can tear up, all these kind of issues actually happen. So that can be an alternative there as well. So these are the reasons why these e-currencies are being used. Now, e-currency will be available in the same denominations as a currency note. Like for example, you have a currency note for rupees 5, let's say rupees 10, rupees 20, you have a currency note for this. Similarly, this is how the e-rupee will also work. It will have the same denominations as physical currency. It will have the same denominations as physical currency. Also, it will be backed by the government, it will be backed by the RBI, so it will have a legal backing. Also, one very important thing. Right now, what is happening, this pilot project that the RBI is running, RBI is only giving this facility to 4 cities, and let's see in the 4 cities how is it done. Now, the interesting part and one other difference between UPI and e-currency will be e-rupee will not require your bank account. Like UPI will only work if you have a UPI wallet linked to a bank account, right? If you don't have a bank account, UPI will not work in your phone. If I transfer money through UPI or through scanning your QR code, it will only work if I have a bank account. E-rupee does not require a bank account. It is just like normal rupee. I'm keeping it in my wallet or keeping it in my phone. It is the same thing. Does that it will not require me to have any kind of a bank account. It can be withdrawn. It can be transferred very easily. It will be available in the same denominations as the physical denominations. This is not the same as cryptocurrency. Don't be confused with that. Cryptocurrency is based on blockchain technology. It is very different. Blockchain technology means where information is divided into some small blocks divided across the world. That is not the same. Cryptocurrency is not regulated by anyone. Cryptocurrency does not have any legal backing, while e-rupee will have a legal backing by the government, by the RBI, just how a normal currency works. Now, if you ask me in our day-to-day life, what difference will it make? Let's try and understand that. In our day-to-day life, what difference will it make? So the first difference that it will make now is that number one, you can use it like UPI only, but you will not need to have a bank account for that. For UPI wallet, you need to have a bank account. For e-rupee, you don't need to have a bank account for that. It will just be money coming from your wallet to some other one's wallet. You don't have to carry it physically. Number one, this is one thing. The second thing, which is not happening right now, but as I said, it might happen later on, the government may control how you use the money which the government is sending you. See, with the money that is your own money, you can use it in whatever way that you want. But if the government is sending money to your account for subsidy, for buying food, for buying medicine, so government may control that you are not able to use this money somewhere else. I'll give you a real example, okay? Maybe you are able to understand this better. If you have worked in the field of education, there's a big problem in the field of education. Let's try and understand this. So what happens is Government of India has to ensure free of cost education, right? Under the RTE, everyone in India from 6 to 14 years of age has the right to go to school free of cost. So what the government has done, government has set up free government schools where anyone can take admission if you're 6 to 14, right? Now, let's try and take an example. This is a real issue. This is a real problem in the field of education. Let's assume that there's a parent who says, I don't want to send my kid to a government school because they are not good quality. Okay? The parent says, I want to send my kid to a private school, but the private school has a fee of rupees 1,000. The parent says that the private school has a fee of rupees 1,000. Now, the parent says that I don't have rupees 1,000, but I can afford rupees 600. The parent says that I can afford rupees 600, not 1,000. So if the government, rather than sending my kid to a free government school, if the government can send me rupees 400 per month, then I can send my kid to this private school. Then I can send my kid to this private school. This is the idea. Let me repeat. Right now, government allows you to send your kids free of cost to a government school. But let's say I don't want to send my kids to government school. I want to send them to a private school. I can afford half of the fee, but other half I cannot afford. So I want the government, rather than spending money on my kid in a government school, government should transfer me 200, 300 rupees, and I will add some money and send my kid to a private school. This is a suggestion given by many people. But the problem here is, let's say the government transfers 300 rupees to you. And when the government transfers 300 rupees to you, the problem is government has to make sure that you only use this in school and nowhere else. How will the government make sure of that? There is no possibility right now. Right now, government cannot let that happen. With e-rupee, it may be possible. With e-rupee, the government might give you 300 rupees and make sure that it is only used for schools. You cannot pay that money anywhere else. So that is an idea that can happen in the future. Many countries are doing this globally. As I said, over 100 nations are exploring this idea. China was one of the first ones to explore this idea, and many other nations are actually doing this. Jamaica, the Bahamian Islands, all of these are trying to explore this idea. Now in India, right now there are two versions of e-rupee, as the RBI has said. There will be a retail version and there will be a wholesale version. Retail version means where you can, one person can pay to the other person to buy something or just to transfer money, and the wholesale version will be for financial institutions, for bank to bank transfer, for buying government security deposits, etc. So it can be a retail version also, it can be a wholesale version also. These are the two versions available for the e-rupee right now. Do remember, when you say CBDC, that is e-rupee only. I told you the full form in the beginning. CBDC, Central Bank Digital Currency. So that is how it will work. Right now, it will have two things. Now, as I told you, it will work in the same manner as a physical rupee. It will be available in the same denominations as the physical rupee. The only difference being that in this case, you will not be physically transferring money from one person to the other. You can do it via the QR code, etc. You can give it to the merchants. It will be like a physical cash only. The role of the banks to settle the amount later on will actually reduce. That is the main difference that will happen. So these are the things that the government is now planning to introduce in the future with the introduction of e-rupee now. Let's see if you can answer this question, and then I will take up your questions, whatever question that you have asked. Read this question very carefully. I'll give you your options after that. If you have read this, let me know. I'll start your timer. Done? Okay, your time has started. Okay, your time is up. 59% people here are correct. The answer here is B3 only. First is wrong. We discussed blockchain is used for cryptocurrency. RBI CBDC is not based on blockchain technology. Second is again wrong. See, as I told you, there are retail and wholesale versions. Retail means person to person is allowed. So you can transfer money individually to another person. Wholesale is also allowed. Wholesale will be person to merchant is also allowed. So both of these are allowed. Third is correct. They will be in the same denominations as the physical currency. So like, for example, if someone transfers you the money, I'll give you an example. Okay. Let's say right now, if I have to transfer 103 rupees to someone. Okay. Now in my wallet, in my e-currency wallet or e-rupee wallet, I need to have 3 rupees change. So it will be just like a physical note. I can transfer 100 rupee note and I can transfer maybe 3 coins of 1. But if I don't have 3 coins of 1, if I have, let's say, 110 rupee note, then I can only transfer 110. Then he has to return 7. Just like the physical currency works. So physical currency denominations will be the same as they will be used here. Not like UPI. In UPI, you can transfer any amount digitally. That is the difference between the two. There are a lot of questions here. Let me quickly see those questions one by one. Okay. First question. Then what we transfer through UPI isn't digital currency? No. What you transfer through UPI is a digital way of transferring currency. It is not digital currency. See, when you are transferring money through UPI, You are doing it digitally, but the banks at the back end, if you are transferring, let's say from Axis Bank to ICICI Bank, they are then settling it physically. It's a lot of work for them. So no, UPI right now is a digital transfer of currency. It is not the same as digital currency. Please do understand the difference. Then I have a question. Can this be seen as a phasing out of physical currency? I don't think physical currency will ever phase out in many years. You have everyone using UPI, but still physical currency has to be used. See, understand this. The problem with all these currencies and why it cannot be the only currency is ultimately you are dependent on your phone for this. If I don't have my phone, if I don't have internet, then how will I transfer money? That ends the entire issue. If I don't have phone, my battery is out, or someone doesn't have access to phone, then physical currency has to be present. So you can't rule out physical currency all of a sudden. Physical currency will always play a part. These are just alternatives given along with that. Kirti is saying, in case customer doesn't hold bank account, how can they deal with transactions? You're confusing it with UPI. E-rupee transferring doesn't require any bank account. For example, if you are giving someone a 500 rupee note, how are they taking it if they don't have a bank account? They can take it, keep it in their pocket, as simple as that. Similarly, if you transfer someone e-rupee, they can keep it in their phone. They don't have to send it to a bank account. So bank account doesn't have to be linked. Then Rahul is saying, if government make control, then it seems it will be useful to stop crimes like terror funding, etc. It's too far to think that. It's not that government will be able to control it. It's more than controlling. Government is trying to ensure that the specific application of money should be used for that purpose. But again, government should not be able to control it entirely, because if the government controls everything about how I use my money, then we are living in a dictatorship. So I don't think it will have those implications as of now. Let's see in the future if the technology comes in, we can stop terror funding, etc. But again, as I said, see, you can't say that every step of the government will control terror funding. Terror funding is a separate concept altogether. Let's not think that every initiative of the government will control terror funding. Because as I said, cash will never go out of circulation. Cash will always be there. These are just new alternatives coming up. Then I have a question. If e-rupee doesn't require bank account, how does it work? I've already answered. If you give someone 100 rupee note, how do they take it if they don't have a bank account? They just keep it in their pocket. As simple as that. Similarly, or let's go to other way. Even let's make it even easier. If you have a Paytm wallet, and you can keep money in that. You can't, even if you don't attach it to a bank account, it is also fine. So this is how the e-rupee will work. You don't need to have a bank account for that. You can have an app that the RBI will come up with, or in fact, there is an app of RBI. You can see it at the Play Store as well. There is an app that they have launched. Using that money, using that app, you can transfer the money, keep it with you. You don't have to put it in any bank account. Then I have a question. Do we have to buy e-rupee on its own? No, you don't have to buy e-rupee. Let's say, for example, you have it in a bank. You can ask, when you withdraw, for example, money from the ATM, you might have an option without withdrawing it. You can give instruction that from money from ATM without bringing cash out, you can transfer the money to your app. So that's a thing in the future. You'll have to see how that rolls out. Will e-rupee affect the banking system in India? It might make the work of the bank slightly lesser. So that's a good thing for them. Then is it possible to exchange digital currency with physical currency? Yes, it would be. Why not? I don't think it would be a problem. See, when you have e-currency, you, let's say, deposit it in your bank account. That is an option. And then you can take out physical currency from that. I don't think there will be an issue with that as well. Perfect. Achha, one more thing before we go on. I know you have a lot of questions about e-currency or CBDC, etc. Do understand this is something very new coming up. A lot of new features will add on to that, and there is not much clarity on a lot of these things. The examples, for example, that I'm giving you, that government will decide how will we use this money. Indian government has never said that we will do this. I'm giving you these examples from other countries. Indian government has never said we will use e-rupee to control how you spend your money. This idea has been suggested by other nations, China, etc., who have already rolled this out. In India, we might see the same in the future, but right now government is not saying that we will use it for this and that purpose. So we'll have to wait and see what the government actually comes up with. Anyway, the next topic that we have is personality rights. Now, before going to this personality rights topic, I'm sure all of you would have noticed when you go to, let's say, some government shops, or not government, sorry, when you go to some small private shops, let's say you go to buy sugarcane juice, or you go to buy or you go to a local hairdresser salon for haircut, etc. You would see at many places there will be a photo of a superstar. If you're in North India, maybe Amitabh Bachchan, Salman Khan, Shah Rukh Khan. If you're in South India, then maybe some other stars. So your local stars photo will be put. There are sugarcane juice shops where there'll be a photo of Katrina Kaif drinking that sugarcane juice, Salman Khan drinking that sugarcane juice. Now, do you think they would have paid money to them? Obviously not. So they obviously would not have paid money to these superstars. They would have just Googled it, and whatever photo of the superstar comes in, they put it on the poster, and then they just set up their shop. Now, what has happened is when local people do that, it is fine. The superstars or these actors, actresses, these celebrities, they don't say a lot of things. But when this is done by big businesses, when they start using image or voice of celebrities to earn money from that, that becomes a problem. This is the question of personality rights. So Amitabh Bachchan recently, his lawyers went to Delhi High Court arguing that his voice, his photo is being used by many agencies and that should be stopped because he has his own personality rights. Personality right means when you are a celebrity, then you have the right to decide how your voice, your image, your photo, your video, etc. will be used because that is a part of your personality. That is how you earn money. Delhi High Court has given this order in favor of Amitabh Bachchan, and this is not the first one. This is not the first case like that. I'll give you multiple examples of multiple cases that have happened. For example, in 2011, when Arun Jaitley was alive, Arun Jaitley found out that there were some people who were running a website, and the name of the website was called arunjaitley.com. So Arun Jaitley got to know that there's someone who's running a website called arunjaitley.com. Now he said that I don't own this website. And the problem is, if someone owns this website, whatever they put on the website, people will think it is Arun Jaitley speaking, right? If you have a website tomorrow by your name, yourname.com, and someone is putting random information there, everyone will think it is you only, if you are a famous personality especially. So Arun Jaitley also went to the court in 2011, Delhi High Court especially, saying that either I should be given control of this website or the website should stop entirely. This case also was decided in favor of Jaitley. So it is not the first time that the issue of personality rights has come up. In fact, I'll give you one more example. So a few years back, there was a movie that was made in India, and the name of the movie was Main Hoon Rajnikant. That was the name of the movie, Main Hoon Rajnikant. To those who don't understand Hindi, the translation is I am Rajnikant. That was the name of a movie that was released. Rajnikant, the famous superstar, he was not a part of that movie. He went to the court that how can anyone use my name? So the movie's release was stopped. They were asked to change the name of the movie. Only then the movie was released. So this is not the first time that the issue of personality rights has come up. Now in India, as you know, in our constitution or none of our laws in India talk about personality rights. There is no law in India as such, but the courts time and time again have talked about personality rights. They have said that attributes need to be protected like name, nickname, stage name, image, identifiable property, etc. has to be protected. I'll give you an example. So let's say there is a famous personality. Okay. Let's take a very simple example. Let's assume there's a famous personality, a famous actor who has a very unique car. Okay. Let's assume there's a very unique car that a famous actor owns, whatever the color, or let's say because there are very few of these cars in India, let's say he owns a red Ferrari. Although red Ferrari also now is not that unique. But let's say there's a superstar who owns a red Ferrari. Okay. Now let's take an example. in an ad, a person shows, or a, let's say, a brand, cigarette brand shows that this red Ferrari is going, and someone is actually smoking cigarette in the Ferrari and then throwing out, and this red Ferrari is going. So basically that ad is trying to show you that the famous personality who owns this car may be smoking the cigarette. They're not showing the personality's name, not showing his face, nothing, but they are showing a famous identity of this person. That also should not be allowed. This is what the court have said. Famous identifiable personal property like distinctive race cars, etc., even that should not be allowed. Even bringing that to light should not be allowed. It is not that you cannot use someone's name, you cannot use someone's image, etc. You cannot even use these kind of things which clearly identify the person. Now there are two problems with it. One, you have to stop people from commercially exploiting it. Like if someone is using Amitabh Bachchan's name to sell their product without giving any money to Amitabh Bachchan, that is wrong. So that is one issue. The other issue is right to privacy. The other issue is right to privacy. Right to privacy means maybe Amitabh Bachchan does not want to be shown in that ad. He has a right to privacy. He has a right to decide where his photo will be shown. These are the two major issues in India. Right to privacy, as you know, has been considered a part of Article 21 now. It is a part of right to life, but it does not specifically talk about personality rights as we discussed. Personality rights have been decided by the court multiple times. They are very similar to copyright or trademarks. Just like the Copyright Act says that you cannot copy someone's creation, you cannot copy what someone else's art is, you cannot copy someone else's, let's say, music, movie, etc. Similarly, you cannot copy these personality rights. As I told you, the example of Main Hoon Rajnikant movie, that was also stopped. Similarly, there have been many, many cases where the courts have said that you cannot just copy another person. Now, this is where a problem actually starts. Because there is no specific law for personality rights, because it is not written in the constitution, there is a gray area here. Gray area means, what about the mimicry artists? See, mimicry artists are the ones who actually make their living by mimicking other people only. You see so many people on the comedy shows, etc., mimicking other people. Now, would you say the personality rights apply there? Would you punish the comedian for actually mimicking the person? There is no clarity on that. There is no clarity on how exactly would you define personality right, because even the comedian or even the mimicry artist is earning money from that acting. He's earning money from mimicking the voice, he's earning money from mimicking that character. Would you take action against him? So far that has not happened. So far the mimicry artists, etc., have not been asked not to do this. But because there is no specific law on that, there is no clarity on how exactly will it be used. So that debate is still going on. I have a question. Okay, this is the kind of question that you can expect. What are personality rights? Explain their significance in ensuring the right to privacy. I have a question here. Is this right only in regards with famous personality, or can be applied to common people? So far, as per the court, only for famous personalities. They have also defined famous personalities. Someone who is usually talked about, someone who is followed by many people. So not to common man, at least as of now, but you can go to the court. Mahesh, okay. This is a kind of question that you can expect. Try and write an answer to this. Now, this is not the kind of topic from where you can expect a lot of questions, the prelims exam. See, prelims exams questions are mostly fact based. Personality rights, etc., because they are not written in the constitution as such, they are not really fact based as such. They are more of debates. What kind of law should be formed, what kind of interpretation of the law there should be. So you can't expect a lot of questions in the prelims exam from that. It's mostly a mains exam kind of a thing. Perfect. The The next important news for the entire country, where the entire country was worried, was about the ransomware attack in AIMS. Okay, I have one more question. Let me go through that as well. I have a question. Troll pages using celebrity videos is unlawful. Again, see, if you ask me random examples, is this unlawful, is that unlawful, I will not be able to answer that, because the court decides that. See, the entire issue is, because there is no concept of personality rights in the law, there is no concept of personality rights in the constitution. So if you have a question, would this be unlawful or would that be unlawful, that is what you have to ask the courts. So the court can decide, I can't decide. If that would have been so clear, then Arun Jaitley or Amitabh Bachchan would not have had to go to the court. So if your question is, troll pages which use celebrity videos are unlawful or not, maybe, I don't know. But yes, at least they do violate the Copyright Act. So for example, if there is a movie and you take out the movie clip, use it for your own, for your page without giving credits, that is a violation of your rights. That is a violation of the Copyright Act. So you will be asked to take that down. So that is, I know for sure, violation of Copyright Act. But is it a violation of personality rights or not? The court will decide that, because there is no clarity on that. Okay. Perfect. The next topic that we have is about AIMS and what AIMS has been suffering from. So in the past week or 10 days, we saw a very unusual thing happening in AIMS. That was the AIMS ransomware attack. Now, what exactly is a ransomware attack? What happened in AIMS? Let's try and understand. Ransomware is kind of a hacking, in very simple terms, kind of a cyber attack. So, for example, let's say tomorrow you open up your laptop, and when you open up your laptop, you're trying to log in, you're trying to enter your password, it's not taking your password. And all of a sudden on your screen, there is a message that will come up that we have hacked your laptop now. If you want to use your laptop again, or if you want to take the control of your laptop back, then pay us this much money in this account. Once you transfer 50 lakh rupees in our account, we will unlock your laptop and then you can use it. This is called ransomware. When you hack onto a computer, hack onto certain systems and demand ransom. Ransom means exchange of money. When you demand ransom, that only and only if you pay me money, then I will give you back the control of your computer. That is called ransomware attack. This is what happened in AIMS, where AIMS was attacked. AIMS' entire system was attacked. They were not able to go online. They were not able to access records. And that is why it became a big news. Now, this ransomware attack that you actually see, it has become quite common, unfortunately. It is not very old, or it's not something that has been going on for a long time, but especially after cryptocurrency has come up, these kind of attacks have come up very often. I'll give you a very simple example. It happened in the US also just last year. There was, and this is your homework, I want you to search for the name of the company. I'll not tell you name of the company right now, but last year what happened was, there was a big oil company in US. There was a big oil company in US. Their online systems were hacked all of a sudden, and this oil company reported it that we were not able to, or they were not able to go online. Because understand this, every industry now is based on online system, be it the nuclear energy, be it the oil transmission, be it the electricity transmission, all of that is based on online networks. So a big US oil company, their systems were hacked. This company is from Texas. So if you want, you can search it later on. It is from Texas mainly. Now, what happened was, there was so much panic in the country. Although government in US kept on announcing that there's no problem, nothing will happen, the hackers demanded some crores of rupees in cryptocurrency, in bitcoins. They said they transfer bitcoins to us and then we'll release your account. Apparently that hacker group was from Russia. Now, the panic was so much that people in the US were in queues outside the petrol pumps or gasoline stations, as they call them, because people thought that they will not get petrol, they will not get gas. Prices started shooting up. After a few days, it was then settled down. Firstly, it was said that no money was given, but later on, the owner of the company said that no, we had to give some ransom, only then we got our money back. So, all these kind of issues have become very common, especially with cryptocurrency. Why? Because when you transfer cryptocurrency from one place to the other, it is impossible to trace it. If you transfer it in the bank account, you can trace which account is it going in, where is it going. But with cryptocurrency, these kind of things have become very, very common. So this is the issue of ransomware, where someone's system is attacked and then they are told, we will not let you get control of your system unless you pay us the money in return. Now, the problem is these kind of attacks have become increasingly common, so much so that now many armies around the world actually have their own hackers. I don't know if you know this or not, but Chinese army have their own team of hackers with them. Their job is that you hack into computers of the countries that we don't like. Russia has their own hacking army, which is controlled by the Russian government. Every big country now has this. The Indian government also has been trying to work in this regard. We also have been trying to ensure that we can actually fight against this. Now, the latest news is that the AIMS server are back. There is no problem with the servers. That ransomware attack is over. But the issue in AIMS was, see, AIMS is an institute where, understand this, the lakhs and lakhs of people come to AIMS every single month for a lot of different issues. The VVIPs go to AIMS when they have a problem. So everyone's personal health records, which disease do you have, which health issue are you suffering from, all those personal records are kept in the server of AIMS. Now just imagine that server being hacked, information of crores and crores of people being compromised, people around the world getting to know who is healthy, who is unhealthy, what problem are you facing. This can then be used as a blackmail also. So it is a very, very, very important issue. And because this ransomware attack happened, the government of India now is trying to ensure that there are more measures towards it. For now, at least, this ransomware issue has been controlled. As I told you, ransomware is a kind of a hacking. It's not the only, it's a kind of hacking where cyber criminals actually demand a ransom in exchange for giving the decryption fee. Decryption key means how to unlock it. They will demand ransom from it, and only then they will actually be able to do that. Now, these kind of attacks, as I told you, have become very common, especially when the cryptocurrency has come up. Because earlier, hackers also knew, even if they transfer money in their bank account, the government will easily find them out. But now with cryptocurrency, it has become very, very common. Many terrorist groups are also using this because the money cannot be traced down. That is why the ransomware issue has become very big. Now, how does India deal with it? Let's try and understand this. That is more important from the examination point of view. The government of India realized this, that the issue of hacking will become very, very big. That is why in India, we have a specific department called CERT-IN. CERT-IN stands for Indian Computer Emergency Response Team. This is the government of India's major department to fight against any hacking attempts made in India. Any hacking attempt made on Indian government websites, any hacking attempt made on any state government websites, all of that has to be dealt by the CERT-IN team. They are the first responders. They have the major responsibility in ensuring that they actually negate these kind of attacks. They have to prepare policies, they have to ensure the systems are up to date. There's all sorts of technologies that they have to keep ahead of. Then we also have the National Cyber Security Coordinator. This is the department that coordinates with different agencies for any kind of issues. So they are the ones who pass on information to CERT-IN. Any department facing any cyber issues, the information will be collected by National Cyber Security Coordinator. Then we have the National Critical Information Infrastructure Protection Center also. It's a kind of a database. It's a kind of a research center which the government has set up to bring in new technologies to fight against cyber crimes. Similarly, there are some other government initiatives. The Cyber Swachhata Kendra, the National Cyber Coordination Unit, all these are examples of how the government has been trying to fight against these cyber attacks, with the main body at the top being CERT in only. It works under Department of Electronics and Communication. They are the ones who actually make sure that India's cyber security infrastructure is up to date. What are the suggestions? These are certain suggestions or the way forward, whatever you want, you can use it here. The government can come up with a national cyber security strategy that has not come up so far. That may be telling a perfect action plan, telling all the departments, if you face such a cyber attack, what should you do? What should be your first step? Where should you report? What should you do? Increase the budget for cyber security measures, because you have to stay one step ahead. Many countries around the world are actually trying to increase their budget, especially in their army, especially to hire hackers that can use other systems' weaknesses to hack into them. We also have to ensure capacity enhancement, means skill development of people who can work in this field. If other nations have people who can hack into your systems, you also need to have people who can come out of those hacking attempts. So skill development and international cooperation. We should cooperate with other kind of nations as well who are facing similar types of issues as well. This is a kind of question that you can have. For example, what is ransomware? Is India well prepared to deal with such cyber threats? I have a question. Colonial Pipeline, yes. So the homework I gave you, Colonial Pipeline is the correct name. That is the name of the US company that got hacked. That is Colonial Pipeline. Other question I have is, give some light on role of CERT in these cases. So as I said, for example, let's say in the AIIMS case only, when this issue of AIIMS would have come out, the first department or the department that has the responsibility of now making things bringing things under control is the CERT-in department. So CERT-in department is a department of the government which has all these cyber security experts, engineers, people working in this field. They will be the one who will fight against these ransomware attacks. So they will be the one who will be trying to decode what happened without giving ransom. That is how CERT-in works. Then I have a question. Could they link with our adversaries like China and Pakistan? I'm not sure what your complete question is. But if your complete question is, are these attacks happening from China and Pakistan? Maybe, maybe not. Who knows? It's easy to blame anyone, but let's not blame without any proof or evidence. So if that's what your question was, I'm not sure what the exact question was. If your question is it done by China, Pakistan? Maybe, because there's no evidence, so you don't know. But yes, there have been certain instances of China actually, not ransomware, but we have seen China actually interfering with India's digital system. For example, when the pandemic was going on, there was a time when all of a sudden there was a power supply disruption in Mumbai. The entire city's power line went off, even the hospitals which were filled with patients. Then it was later found out it was actually done by a Chinese cyber group. So usually you have to understand, when a country does it, let's say China, Pakistan, if the country does it, they don't ask for ransom in return. Because what will they do with $1 billion, $2 billion? For a country, $1, $2 billion is nothing. So when a ransomware attack happens, when it is money that is being asked, that is usually a group, a private group, or nothing to do with the government. When it is a government attack, they are mostly to do damage and not really to take money. Then I have a question, difference between ransomware and malware. So basically, these are two connected things. Malware simply means if I try to infect your computer by sending a virus, by sending a program that will destroy your computer, where you will not be able to work, or I will be able to see your information, that is called malware. Malware can be of many types. One type of malware is ransomware. Ransomware means where I tell you, if you want your system to go back to normal, pay me money and I will make everything go back to normal. That is called ransomware. So malware is a generic name given to all types of cyber attacks. One of those is called ransomware. Ransomware is where money is asked in return. That is the only difference between the two. Okay. Perfect. Let's move on to the next topic then. The next topic in news is same-sex marriage in India. A topic which unfortunately we don't discuss a lot in our day-to-day social life. We are pretty afraid of touching these types of topics, the LGBTQ community, the same-sex marriage. We're like, no, let's not talk about them. Let's talk about something else. But the reality is, it is a part of our society. It is a big question in our society, and these things should be debated, should be discussed. Now, the same-sex marriage, as the name suggests, is a marriage between man and a man, women and a woman. So when you have two people of the same gender deciding to marry, that is same-sex marriage. Now, why is it in the news and what is the concept in India? In India, there is no clarity on same-sex marriage right now. Okay? Now, the issue why is it in the news is there have been multiple petitions filed in the Supreme Court where same-sex couples have gone to Supreme Court requesting the Supreme Court that they should be allowed to marry. How? So in India, we have a special law called the Special Marriage Act. In India, we have a law called the Special Marriage Act of 1954. Now, let's try and understand this. See, in India, every religion has their own personal laws. Hindu religion has its own personal laws. Muslim religion have its own personal laws. So every religion in India has its own personal laws. For example, for Hindu religion, there are specific laws about their marriage. For Muslim religion, there is a specific law for their marriage. For Sikh, etc., there are specific laws. But no law talks about if a marriage can happen between people of different religions. Are you understanding it? Hindu marriage laws talk about marriage amongst Hindus. Muslim marriage laws talk about marriage amongst Muslims. Sikh marriage law might talk about marriage amongst Sikhs. But no law here covers marriage between two different religions. So what the government did in 1954 was a law was passed called the Special Marriage Act of 1954. This is the law that actually allows people to marry which are not covered under any other law. The people who are not covered under other personal laws, they can marry under this law. That is the idea. So for example, if a Hindu and a Muslim are getting married, they will not be covered under their own personal laws, but they can still marry under this law. That is the entire idea of the Special Marriage Act of 1954. Now, why is it or how is it connected here? The connection is the same-sex couples who have approached the Supreme Court, they are saying the same thing. The same-sex couples are saying, because our marriage is not covered under any of the other religious laws, please allow us to marry under the Special Marriage Act of 1954. That is what their argument is. Okay. Now, what has happened is whenever these kind of questions come to the Supreme Court, that we want to do this, there is no law about, or we want a new law for that. Usually what happens is the Supreme Court's first reaction always is that the Supreme Court asks this question to the government of India. So the usual way is you ask this question to Supreme Court, I want to do this. Supreme Court will pass on this question to the government and they will ask, what is your view on it? This is what has happened. In the Supreme Court, the petitions are filed. Supreme Court has now asked the government about their view. What do you think? Do you want to change your laws or do you not want to change your laws? Should we decide on this right now? So this is what has happened. The government will take some time to decide on what exactly should happen. Now, the petitioners who have gone to Supreme Court, they are saying they should be allowed to marry under the Special Marriage Act. Special Marriage Act does not discriminate between same-sex couples and couples who are from different genders. They don't discriminate under that. So we should be allowed to actually marry. They have also said that Supreme Court itself has been very liberal in these kind of things. For example, we all know Supreme Court has decriminalized homosexuality in India. In the very famous case in 2018, in the Navtej Singh Johar case, as you know, Section 377 of the IPC, as it is called, homosexuality is now decriminalized in India. That is not an offense now. So when the Supreme Court has said that homosexuality is not an offense, the next step should be, as per the couples, the next step should be is they should be allowed to marry also. If they're allowed to have sexual relations and this is not against the law, homosexuality is not unlawful now, then they should be allowed to marry also. That is what their argument is from the court. The Supreme Court, as you know, has also said that right to marry is also a part of your fundamental rights under Article 21. In the famous Hadia case, as you know, in that case, the Supreme Court had said the right to marry is also fundamental right. This is what the petitioners are saying, that right to marry is also fundamental right. Homosexuality also has been decriminalized right now. So what is stopping us? We should be allowed to get married to the person of our choice under the Special Marriage Act. That is what their argument is. And the Supreme Court has been asking the government. Now, the interesting part is, this is not the first time that this question has come up. The same petitioners who filed this case in the Supreme Court, the same petitioners filed this petition in 2020 also. The same people went to court in 2020. So government in 2020 said that we are focusing on the pandemic right now. They requested the Supreme Court to stop this petition. Let's not discuss it right now. They said we have other priorities. We'll discuss it later. So in 2020, when this petition was filed, the Supreme Court said, okay, come back later. So now the people have come back in 2022, that now the pandemic is over, now tell us. Now the government stand is very interesting. In the past, when this question has been asked to the government about same-sex marriage, should it be allowed, should it not be allowed, the government has always said that marriage is allowed between biological man and biological women. Also, the government has said Supreme Court has decriminalized homosexuality, but they have not talked about marriage. The government of India has said that Supreme Court decriminalized Section 377, that is fine. But they never said that marriage can be allowed between people of same sex. That is not decided by the court so far. Now, there is no clarity on what will happen because, again, the court has asked the government, they have given the time to the government. Government is yet to respond. But looking at the way the Supreme Court has functioned, as I said, one by one, they have said that right to marry is a fundamental right under Article 21. Then they have decriminalized homosexuality as well. So the next step many people are expecting is maybe the Supreme Court will go ahead and allow these same-sex marriage as well. Interestingly, many countries around the world have taken up this issue. They have allowed this in various ways. For example, Netherlands was the first country to legalize the same-sex marriage by amending their civil marriage laws. Not just this, USA very recently, in fact, just a few days back, something happened in the US also. I don't know if you have been following international news or not, but just a few days back, US Senate also passed a law giving protection to same-sex marriage. Now, I'll just come back to the last slide. What has happened in the US is, in US, same-sex marriage was already allowed in many states. But the problem in the US was, let's say in one state, same-sex marriage is allowed. When the couple went to some other state where it was not allowed, then the marriage would be cancelled. That used to happen earlier. So in USA, if the couple married in one state where the same-sex marriage was allowed, then they migrated to some other state, then the marriage was cancelled. Now that will not happen. Now in the US, they have passed a law, if you marry in any of the states, when the same-sex marriage happens, it will be valid across the entire country. That is what the US has also done in just a few days back. So it is a question that is actually going ahead in a lot of different countries and not just India. So the Special Marriage Act of 1954, as I said, is an act that allows people to get married who are not covered under personal laws of Hindu Marriage Act, Muslim Marriage Act, etc. They can get married under the Special Marriage Act. So when your marriage is not covered in any of these, you can actually come to the court and you can still get registered under the Special Marriage Act. The petitioners are asking their marriage to consummate under this particular act only. This is a kind of question that you can actually ask or that you can actually expect. It is time to look beyond the binary definition of gender in India as well. Do you agree? Elaborate. This is the question that you have to answer. Okay. Um, let's see. A question that I have is, can under Special Marriage Act allow the same sex couple to marry? That is the question that the Supreme Court is being asked. That is the entire question that the people are asking the Supreme Court. How can I answer this? That is the exact question which people are asking the Supreme Court now, that under Special Marriage Act, we should be allowed to marry same sex couples. Let's see what the Supreme Court says. So how can I say yes or no? That is the entire question. Then I have a question under Navtej Johar case, addition to decriminalization of homosexuality. Yes. So that is the only thing that happened. The Navtej Johar case, homosexuality was decriminalized. So homosexuality decriminalization has had a very interesting journey in India. In 2013, if you know, in the Delhi High Court, in the Nas Foundation case, it was a Delhi High Court actually first that decriminalized homosexuality in India. Then appeal was filed in the Supreme Court. Supreme Court overturned the decision. Why? Supreme Court said that we will not decide that, let the parliament decide. You pass a law. But the government never passed any law. Then again a matter was filed in the Supreme Court, Navtej Johar case in 2018. Then Supreme Court said, okay, we are decriminalizing homosexuality. So homosexuality was decriminalized earlier also by Delhi High Court, overturned by Supreme Court, asking the parliament to do it. Parliament did not do anything. So Supreme Court decriminalized it. Now, one other very interesting matter which you have to understand here. See, in many countries, especially in countries such as India, understand what happens. In countries such as India, or in any democratic country, many times the governments don't want to make laws on certain issues which are very touchy to the people. The government thinks if they make a law, either a good law or a bad law favoring someone or against someone, anything, the governments usually think that this law that we make might anger people. So usually we have seen a very interesting trend that in many cases the governments don't really give any law. They just wait for the judiciary to do the work. For example, the Supreme Court, as I said, decriminalized or overturned the decision of Delhi High Court asking the parliament to do it. Parliament did not do anything because parliament knows whatever kind of law they make, this is such a touchy issue that people actually, half of them will be against it, half of them will be in their favor. So rather than taking the anger of the people, governments usually stay quiet. They wait for judiciary to do it. So the same might happen in same-sex marriage also. Let's see how it goes ahead. Then I have a question. Madras High Court gives guidelines against discrimination of LGBTQI people. What was that? That was guidelines for discrimination. The answer is in your question only. No discrimination on the basis of their gender, no discrimination on the basis of their sexual orientation. Then I have a question. Same gender marriage is no issue. Why is it no issue? Baba, this is the entire issue. How can you say same-sex marriage is no issue? Okay. The question is, same gender marriage is no issue, but what about their generation or child? I don't know if you know how science works. So, so the question that I have is, even if same-sex people get married, what about their child? I don't know, man. Have you heard of abortion? Or sorry, have you heard of adoption? Have you heard of test tube baby? Have you heard of surrogacy? There are many things that can happen. So I don't think that you need to ensure that there are people of opposite gender in a marriage only to have a child. There are many other ways. So I don't think that should be a concern. How do people, or let's say if there's a couple and one of them actually dies, but the other one can still have a kid, how do they have it? There are many things that can happen. So I don't think that it is a big issue. The issue is same-sex marriage only. Let's not say that this is not our issue. Perfect. The next topic that we have is the Kaziranga project. Now, Kaziranga project specifically is a very prelims based topic because it is a very factual topic. So this is one of those topics which is mainly asked in prelims. Why? So this kind of a project, Kaziranga project, it's nothing but a collaborative project between India and France. As the name suggests, the idea of the project is that they want to revive and restore some area in the Kaziranga National Park. I don't know how many of you have been there. I've been to Kaziranga National Park. It's an amazing place to go. If you go there, do take up the early morning safari. You actually will have a lot of great time there. So in Kaziranga, the Indo-French partnership has borne fruit. It's a part of the Kaziranga project where the two sides have come together. France has committed that they will be spending over 80 million euros over next 10 years, or not over next 10 years, but from 2014 to 2024. They'll be spending over 80 million euros to restore some part of the Kaziranga National Park, and it has already started to work well. So what has happened is this project is a part of Assam project on forest and biodiversity conservation. The Assam government is working with the French government. They are the ones who have been investing a lot of money here to restore this. Now, you might ask, why is the government doing this, or why is any government spending money in some other country? See, developed nations usually do this, and India also does it. It's not that India doesn't do that. So developed nations, for example, France, Japan, etc., they do invest a lot of money in development of other nations. For example, India has been a large recipient of Japanese help also in a lot of projects. Similarly, France does it, helping other nations, especially when it comes to environment, climate change, etc. India also does the same. We also have been investing in a lot of projects, setting up a lot of infrastructure in African countries, in Afghanistan also, as you know, dams, etc., have been set up, highways have been built with India's help. So the same is the case here. In this project, that is Project Kaziranga, reforestation of 33,500 hectares of land will be done, and there will be training done for community members, about 10,000 of them, in alternate livelihoods. Alternate livelihood means so that they can take up other skill development activities and they can earn apart from what they are doing right now. Now, up from the Kaziranga project specifically, if you read newspapers, this is the only information that is available. The one that we shared with you, this is the only information that is available. Even if you go deeper into what is Kaziranga project, what are I trying to do, you will not get any other information. So in these kind of cases, because the Kaziranga project is in the news, it becomes important to just revise about the Kaziranga National Park specifically, because that then becomes relevant for all of us. So I'm sure all of you have read about the Kaziranga National Park. And as I said, I hope many of you have had a good fortune of visiting the Kaziranga National Park also. It's in Assam. It was declared as a national park in 1974. And it has also been a tiger reserve since 2007. It's a UNESCO World Heritage Site since 1985. And also, it's an important bird area by BirdLife International. BirdLife International also is a very important organization. There was a question asked on BirdLife International specifically a few years back in the prelims examination. BirdLife International is actually a group of NGOs mainly. It's a group of NGOs, as the name suggests, a group of NGOs that is trying to preserve birds all around the world. They have also been trying to preserve bird life. The Kaziranga National Park especially is famous for the one-horned rhinoceros. It has the second large number of rhinos in Assam. In Kaziranga National Park, Kaziranga National Park has the largest population of single-horned rhinos in the entire country. Apart from rhinos, there have been projects for conservation of elephant, Royal Bengal tiger, and water buffalo also going on. If you have been reading the news or whenever you see the monsoon period, especially, is very, very tough for Kaziranga. So basically, the geography of Kaziranga National Park is, if you actually see, this is the area. It's an underlying area. So this will be the Kaziranga National Park, and the nearby areas are slightly higher. The nearby areas are slightly higher, and the Kaziranga National Park is slightly below. So what happens is, whenever there are rains, a lot of water logging actually happens in these areas. Every year, there are issues about monsoon actually leading to water clogging. And every year you see those disturbing photos of rhinos actually losing their life, their dead bodies floating on water in Kaziranga National Park. Every single year it comes in the news. And there's nothing much that can be done about it because of the geography of that area. Geography, I said that water will actually come there and it will accumulate there. So there have been multiple issues where the government has been trying to work, trying to find out a solution to this, but that has not been happening so far. Let's see if you can actually get a question here. This was a previous year question asked by UPSC. Let's see if you can actually solve this. Read this carefully. I'll give you your time after that. Once you have read this, let me know. I'll start your time. Done? Read? Okay. I've started your time then. Okay. Only 18% people actually have given the correct answer. None of these is correct. None of these is correct. So this I'll give you as your homework. See which river passes through which. None of these is actually correct. All of these are wrongly matched. Let's see if you can actually do this in your homework. Just try and find out which river actually flows through which national park. Okay, just try and see. This is a previous year question that has been asked by UPSC. And as you can see from here, questions on these kind of topics can be asked and they are not very easy to answer. For example, this kind of a question, you might eliminate some. For example, I would say this was an easy one to eliminate. Corbett National Park, there is Ram Ganga and not Ganga River. So you can eliminate one, you can eliminate A and C. But even then, you actually have to do B or D. So it becomes slightly tricky. Not that easy to answer, but do try and see if you are actually able to solve this or not. This was, as I said, a previous year question asked by the UPSC. Perfect. Then, okay, I'll take a few questions and then I'll go to the next topic. I have a question. Can rhinos be transported to a safer place during the floods? And that's not how it works. See, understand this. A national park is very different from a zoo. If you are keeping animals enclosed in a small area in a zoo, then you can easily transport them, take them from one place to the other. But a national park is a huge area. It's a huge, huge area. And when you have this huge area, you can't really go across and transport animals from one place to other. It's not even safe for them. It's not safe for transportation people. So that's not really logical. Plus, when you have a large population of it, you can't really have this solution. But yes, there has to be a solution. But let's say what the government comes up with. Perfect. Perfect. Okay. The next topic that we want to discuss is the Great Indian Bustard. Now, what is the Great Indian Bustard? It's a famous bird. So those who are asking what is a Great Indian Bustard, it's a famous bird. Now, why exactly is it in the news? Now, the interesting part is, and I'll advise you highly, if you're appearing for the prelims this year, please do read as much about the Great Indian Bustard as possible because it has been in the news multiple times. It has been in the news multiple times. So there are a lot of these issues that about Great Indian Bustard that have been in the news. For example, about 2 months back, it was in the news because some of them went over to Pakistan through the Rajasthan border. and some wildlife photographer in Pakistan had clicked photos. So it came in the news then also. So those kind of things actually matter in the UPSC examination. The Great Indian Bustard has been in the news for various reasons. Why we are discussing it today? Today it is in the news because the Supreme Court has asked the government, why can't we have a Project Great Indian Bustard just like we had Project Tiger? Just like we had Project Tiger has worked wonderfully well. It has allowed the government, it has allowed the country to restore the population of tigers, increase it. But the same needs to be done for Great Indian Bustard as well. That is, yet the Supreme Court has asked the government to do the same. So, what exactly is a Great Indian Bustard? Why is it in the news? Why is it so important? Let's try and understand that. Now, as I said, the government has been asked by the Supreme Court, let's try and start Project Great Indian Bustard, just like Project Tiger, which was started way back in 1973 at the time of Indira Gandhi when she was the Prime Minister. The Great Indian Bustard as a bird is found in two states in India, Rajasthan and Gujarat, and there are many issues that they are facing. The big issue that Rajasthan and Gujarat states are facing with respect to conservation of Great Indian Bustard is the power transmission lines. Power transmission lines. That is the biggest problem. So these Great Indian Bustards, they actually have a heavy body, but they can still fly. Not very high, but they can still fly. The problem is when they try to fly, they are actually transmission wires, the electricity wires, and they get stuck in them, and that is why a lot of them lose their lives. Now you might ask them, why is it that they get stuck in the wires? Can't they see there is wire? Now this is also a problem. Their eyesight is not great. Their vision is very blurred. So when they fly, they can't make out where is the wire, where do they have to go around the wire. That is also part of the problem. So there are wires, transmission wires, they get stuck in them, the vision is blurry. So what the Supreme Court has asked is that these high power transmission wires, they should actually be made underground. These transmission lines should be made underground so that when they fly, they don't get stuck in those wires. Apart from that, the Supreme Court has also asked for installation of bird diverters in priority area. What is bird diverters? Bird diverters would be devices that would be used to ensure the birds don't come in the area where there are transmission lines. So diverting birds to some other area which is not very harmful for them, and they should be in compliance with the rights or with the proper laws that the Supreme Court has made. No one should harm the birds because their population is anyways decreasing very fast. The Great Indian Bustard, as I said, are found in India, specifically in Rajasthan and Gujarat, but in very small numbers. Their population in India has come down to just 150. A lot of these birds in the past also have crossed over to Pakistan from the Rajasthan border. And in Pakistan, the problem is they are hunted on a very large scale. In Pakistan, we don't have very strict laws for wildlife protection as we have in India. In India, for example, we have the Wildlife Protection Act that gives them a place in Schedule 1. Schedule 1, as you know, means most protected. Schedule 1 means the highest level of protection has been given to them because there are only 150 of them that are left. They have been named as critically endangered by IUCN also and by BirdLife International also. They have been said to be a species that is endangered to critically endangered. And that is why the Supreme Court is saying that we should ensure that they should be protected at any cost, like having Project Great Indian Bustard. Apart from transmission lines, there are some other threats that these birds are facing. Poor vision, as I told you. When they are flying, they are not able to identify where the wires are, where the transmission lines are. That is why they get stuck in them. Then windmills. So basically, Rajasthan deserts, those are certain places where the government has been installing certain windmills, like in Kutch, Thar, etc. These are the places where windmills have come up. Again, the issue is because their vision is blurred, Because they can't identify what is in front of them, a lot of them are getting stuck in the windmills as well. Then there are noise pollution that affects mating and courtship practices. Mating means they are not able to reproduce and increase their population because of the noise pollution around them. Changes in the landscape. A lot of the area where they are living, it's coming under cultivation. The farmers are actually cultivating a lot of things. They're cutting down the trees, they're cutting down the vegetation. That is also changing their way of life. And the cultivation of cotton, wheat instead of pulses have also been the reason for that. Because earlier, when pulses, fodder, etc., was grown, they used to consume that. That used to be their food. Now the practice has changed. Now the cultivation of cotton, wheat, etc., has also made sure that their food supply has come down. These are the things that are still ensuring, or they are still actually being a threat to the great Indian bustard population. As I told you earlier as well, make sure that you read about great Indian bustard as much as possible, because this specific species has been in the news in the entire year for various reasons. And UPSC anyway is very fond of asking questions from environment, specifically from certain species. So great Indian bustard, etc., one of those species from where the question can be asked very, very easily. Questions can be about their IUCN status. It can be about the different types of threat that they're facing. It can be about different types of species, in which state are they found, etc. All these kind of questions can be very, very easily asked. So in the mains, this is the kind of question you can expect. What are the biggest threats faced by the great Indian bustards? How has the government tried to negate these threats? Try and answer this in about 200 words or so. There are a few questions. Let me take those and then we'll go ahead. First question. Why they are demanding under SMA 1954? Why not a separate law? SMA also one of the controversial acts. See, a common man, when they go to the Supreme Court or when they go to any court, they can't demand that a new law should be made for us. That is not how our system works. You have to understand, you can't randomly say anything to the court. What they can demand is that under the existing laws, we are, or that is how we should interpret, or we should be allowed to do this or that. You can't demand a new law as a common citizen. The government may do this, the Supreme Court may do this. So your idea of why are they not demanding a separate law for same-sex marriage? Arey Baba, how can they? They are, you have read Indian polity. How does it work? The parliament has to make a law. The Supreme Court can ask them to make a law. I can't tell the government to make a law unless I do a complete agitation, come on the roads and demand Jan Lokpal movement. So that is not how it works, right? Then I have a question. What will be the impact if the bird species is not there anymore? So basically, you have to understand, have you read about food chains, right? When you talk about food chains in the wild animals or in the wildlife, even when you take out one species, even taking out one species will have a major impact on the food chain. The implications are then seen in the long run. So that is a big, big issue that we have to understand. Uh, I'll give you an example. So what happened was, this was a few decades back in China. In China, there was a government of China's initiative to kill the sparrow bird. I don't know if you have read this or not. China in 1970s, 80s, they ran a project, Kill the Sparrow Bird. Why? They thought that sparrow birds are actually harming their agriculture, they are harming their cultivation, so sparrow birds should be killed. So what happened was, the government of China actually killed the sparrow birds in thousands and lakhs. Now what happened all of a sudden was, the government of China did not realize it, that the sparrow birds actually eat a lot of insects. Because there were no sparrow birds, the insects increased in large numbers, and they then started to actually eat a lot of food grains, a lot of crops. So much so that in China there was shortage of food crops. Government of China was so desperate, they had to import sparrows from other countries such as Russia, etc. So we have seen how even if you take one species out of the entire food chain, this society or as an environment, there would be some disruption that are only seen in the long run. So it is tried that as much as possible, the species should not become extinct so that the nature's balance should not be harmed. Then I have a question. Are states allowed to get funded by foreign countries, or is it, or this is different? No. So Assam government did not get directly funded by France. It's an India-France collaboration, but because Kaziranga National Park is in Assam, so it is happening through Assam. States in India can get funding from international institutions, World Bank, etc. But for that, they have to take Government of India's permission. But they don't directly get funding from foreign countries' governments without the Government of India playing a role in between. The Kaziranga thing that we discussed, it's a collaboration between India and France because Kaziranga happens to be in Assam. So Assam government is actually implementing that on the ground. Then I have a question. Can these birds be sent to safe place for their safety? This is not how it works. See, understand. You are UPSC aspirants. You are going to run the country. You're going to make policy. So the suggestions also that you have to be logical. Just understand this. If it would have been so easy, just pack all the birds in the truck, leave them somewhere else, they will be safe. If it would have been so easy, don't you think government would have done it so long time ago? Do you think this is the first time some idea like that has come up, that we should actually go and transport them to some other? That is not how it works. If I ask you this, let me ask you in the other way. When COVID-19 was spreading, why did the entire country not just pack up and go to Mars or go to Antarctica to be free from COVID? We did not do that. Why? That would have kept us safe, right? If there was COVID everywhere, pack your bags, go to Antarctica, you'll be safe. But that was not done. So if by that logic, can you say that the bird should be sent to some other place just to be safe? No. There is a natural environment where the species have to live and survive. If you randomly uproot them and take them to some other area, that is not how it works. The polar bears have this thick fur because they are supposed to sustain in that climate. If you take the same polar bear and bring it to India for their safety, do you think they will survive? No, they will not survive. So transporting them from one place to other, changing their habitation, etc., is not the way to actually preserve them. It's a way to actually kill them even quickly. Anyway, so I hope that answers this. Perfect. So the last topic that we have for you is a very interesting topic that has come up in the news. That is about the Kuki-Chin tribes. Now, what are they? What is the issue? Let's try and understand this. Now, it is in the news because of what is happening between India and Bangladesh. The India and Bangladesh governments have been talking because a lot of Kuki-Chin tribes are entering India. They are entering the state of Mizoram from Bangladesh. They're actually entering the state of Mizoram from Bangladesh. That is why India and Bangladesh government are talking about what exactly will happen and how will we try to accommodate them. Let's try and understand what the issue is. If we understand the issue, we'll be able to understand what the news is. So the issue is simple. If you actually see this map, this is Bangladesh and this is Mizoram border. So this is the area where Bangladesh and Mizoram share a border. Okay. So this is the area where you are seeing that people from Bangladesh will enter Mizoram. Why? So the people who are entering Mizoram are Kuki-Chin tribes, Kuki-Chin refugees. Now, what exactly is this issue? So Bangladesh has been saying that people from these tribes, Kuki and the Chin, these tribes are fighting the Bangladesh forces. Why? Because the Kuki and the Chin tribes are saying in this area, the Kuki-Chin tribes are saying in this area, we want a new nation for ourselves. Kuki and the Chin tribes are saying we want a new nation in this area for ourselves. Why? I'll tell you. Now, Mizoram has already had many refugees. If you see Mizoram, I'll just erase this so that you can have space again to look. Again, if you look Mizoram, It has borders with Burma. Burma, that is the old name of Myanmar. So it has borders from Myanmar also and from Bangladesh also. So what is happening is in Mizoram, actually people come in from Myanmar as well, and they come in from Bangladesh as well. So in Mizoram, 30,000 people are already refugees from Myanmar. Those who actually came in from Myanmar because they were being attacked by Myanmar. These are again tribals that have their connection with Mizoram. Now, those who are saying Manipur, yeah, so Kuki belong to Manipur only, but again, Manipur does not share any border with Bangladesh. That is why they're coming to Mizoram. Let's try and see what exactly is the issue. Now, these refugees are actually coming into Mizoram because they are fighting with the Bangladeshi National Forces. The Bangladeshi National Army is attacking them, and this Kuki Chin National Army, they are now, or they don't have any other option, but they have to enter India to save their life. Now, if you look at Bangladesh, there's a very interesting area in Bangladesh. Let's look at this map. There's an area in Bangladesh called CHT. CHT is called Chittagong Hill Tracts. If you look at this photo, just look at the green area. This green area, as you can see here, it's a part of Bangladesh. It is called CHT, Chittagong Hill Tract region. Now, what is the area? This is an area where people who live there are very different as compared to what usual Bangladesh citizens are. The people living in this area are mostly tribal people who have a much deeper connection with people in Mizoram, people in Manipur, etc. So people living in this area, the CHT region, Chittagong Hill Tracts region, are not very similar to Bangladesh in their culture, in their history, in their religion. They are much more similar to Mizoram. So what happened was that people living in this area, the Kuki Chin tribe, they formed their own army. They called themselves the Kuki Chin National Army. And they started fighting against the Bangladesh army, saying that we want a separate country here. That is the entire issue. This Chittagong Hill Tract, as I said, is a very different type of a forested area where a lot of tribal population resides. And this tribal population is actually, they border Mizoram in the east, they border Tripura, they border Myanmar also, and they are very different from the majority Muslim Bangladeshi population that lives in Bangladesh. So they have been demanding a separate country altogether, and they have been fighting against the Bangladesh National Army as well. They call themselves the KNA. The KNA means the Kuki Chin National Army. Now that the Bangladeshi forces are attacking them to save their life, they have no option but to enter India from there. That is the entire issue that is happening. Now, they are entering India's Mizoram, and obviously because these tribes have a connection with Mizoram, the ethnicity is the same. Many of their families live in Mizoram. So Mizoram government is also allowing them to enter. It's not that Mizoram government is saying that we will punish you or we'll put you in jail. No. Because those tribes are very similar, they have family connections to Mizoram. Mizoram government is announcing that, okay, we will accommodate you, you come back home. They kind of treat them as heroes, that you are our heroes, you are coming back home, we'll protect you, don't worry about that. Now, the interesting part is, India is one of those countries which is not a part of the UN Refugee Convention. So we are not part of the UN Refugee Convention. UN Refugee Convention means where the countries have promised that if a refugee comes to our country, we will protect them. India is not a part of that convention, remember. We did not sign it. Why? Because we thought that it is not very clear about economic refugees. It is not very clear about different types of refugees, etc. That is why if a refugee comes to India, the Indian government is not under any compulsion to actually allow them to reside here. So if a refugee comes to India, under the Indian law, we can actually punish them, or we can actually use a provision of the Foreigners Act and put them in jail. But that will not happen, because again, the government of India has been considerate towards these tribals. Mizoram government has also been considerate. That is why, even though India is not a part of this UN Convention on Refugees, any refugees that have come to India, they have all been given protection. Be it the refugees from Sri Lanka, where the Tamil population has been living in Tamil Nadu from Sri Lanka for a very, very long time, still living in refugee camps. Whether we have the Rohingya population that has come in from Myanmar, they have been living in India, where we have a lot of other refugees coming in from different countries. All of them have been given protection in India. Even when Bangladesh did not even exist, it used to be East Pakistan. Even then, when thousands and lakhs of people used to come to India, the government of India never forced them to go away. So, although India is not a part of the UN Refugee Convention, India has had a track record that whenever a refugee comes to India, especially those whose lives are in danger, Indian government usually gives them protection only. So in this case also, it is expected the Indian government will give them protection. But yes, it depends on how India and Bangladesh negotiate. For example, if the Bangladeshi government says that some tribals are wanted because they killed our soldiers, then we'll have to see what kind of negotiation actually go on in that case. Let's try and see if you can answer this question. Read this very carefully. Let me know when you've read this. We'll start the poll. Perfect. Time has started. And your time is up. 25% people are correct. So, not an easy question, I know. The correct answer here is C. All the statements actually are correct. The Kuki-Chin tribe are actually the same people. They're just known by different names in different places. So, Chin is used for people living in the Chin state of Myanmar. So, Myanmar is a state called Chin. The people living there are called Chin. And they are called Kukis on the Indian side. So they are the same. The tribe is the same, just known by different names in different countries. Second, following ethnic clash between Nagas and the Kukis in early 1990s, number of Kuki outfits were formed to counter Naga hegemony and assertion. This is also true. So, see, there are different tribes in the northeast part of India. Most of them have been demanding a different country, a different state in different forms. Amongst them, the Nagas have been the ones that have been the most assertive. Nagas have been the one that have been demanding the largest area in the northeast, saying that the entire northeast belongs to us. So under their pressure also, many tribal groups have come up to form their own different issues as well. Third is also correct, as we discussed. They have been demanding to create a separate state in the Chittagong Hill Tract area as well. So these are the three topics, these are three issues. All of these are absolutely correct. Not an easy question to answer, I know. This brings me to the end of my part of the webinar. Now I have a few questions from you. So I'll try and take those. If you don't have any questions, you're free to leave in that case. I did explain about the Naga Kuki issue. As I said, this is the first question. The Nagas were the ones who were demanding almost entire part of Northeast, where the other tribes were demanding their own share. Then I have a question. Kuki-Chin tribes want entire Mizoram or just the southern Bangladesh Hill. So right now, the Kuki-Chin National Army, it's based on out of Bangladesh's area only, Chittagong Hill Tract. So they are demanding that only, not the Mizoram side of it. But again, the issue is, if you allow them to have one country or one state out of one part, then obviously the demand will then go on that other areas also should come under us. So right now their demand is not from Mizoram. Right now their demand is mainly from the CHT area, but it might go on to include Indian Mizoram area as well. Then I have a question. Please give arguments in favor and against the need to have a refugee law. See, the argument mainly in favor is, if you have a refugee law, it becomes easier for anyone who has to come to India from other countries. For example, if someone's life is in danger and they're thinking of coming to India as a refugee, if there is a law in India, they automatically know can they come or can they not come. Right now, because there is no law, they can randomly come and start requesting the government. So when you have a law or a policy in place, it becomes easier for the governments to take decisions. It becomes easier for the courts to decide. Because we don't have any law right now, it is randomly decided on case to case basis. Some refugees are allowed, some are not allowed. So that is the need to have a law. Why or if you say points of why we don't need to have a law, is that India is not one of those nations where we have a lot of refugees coming in. So we have many more refugees that go to Europe, etc. The other part of why don't we have a law or why we should not have a law is that in many cases, we should actually give the government the power to decide whether or not they want to accept refugees or not. Having a strict law would not really accommodate for all the different situations that might arise in the future. But ideally, we should have a law so that the option of randomly deciding on a case-by-case basis actually goes away. Then I have a question. Rohingyas and Kuki-Chin are different in what way? They are very different, Baba. Rohingyas are Muslims. They are originally they were from Bangladesh, then they went to Myanmar. Now Myanmar has asked them out. They're not tribals. They are stateless people. Rohingyas are not recognized in Myanmar, not recognized in Bangladesh. They are not demanding their own country specifically, so it's very different. Kuki-Chin are tribals. They are demanding a separate state, separate country based on ethnicity. They have no connection with Bangladesh, etc. So they have no connection about with the Rohingyas as such. So they are very different. Then I have a question. Could you tell again why India is not a signatory to 1951 UN Convention? So see, India of 1950s was very different. We were never in a position to actually accept refugees. We were still in a situation where we did not have our own base or our own needs covered. We did not have food for our own people. Now, the issue now is that the refugee law that we have from the UN or the UN Convention of Refugees that we have, we don't really accept that. So, for example, the definition of refugees right now with the UN is that anyone who is coming to your country thinking that his or her life is in danger in their own country will be considered as refugees. But the government of India says it is not very clear, life in danger, how. So we are not really sure about the definition of refugees given in the UN Convention. So that is why we don't really abide by that. And Indian government says even the countries that have been a part of the UN Convention on Refugees, even they are not really respecting that convention. So our argument has always been, even though we are not a signatory to this convention, we already follow most of the principles. We allow the refugees, we don't force them to go away. There are multiple examples of Tamils coming from Sri Lanka, the Bangladesh issue, the Rohingyas, etc. So we don't need to sign the convention as per the government because they're already following that, all that in principle as well. Okay. See, I just want to see, please don't think the Rohingyas and the Kuki-Chins are related. That's an assumption that you are making. The Kuki-Chin tribes, this issue is mainly in Bangladesh. Rohingya issue is from Myanmar. So it's not connected. They're religiously very different. Their demands are different. So please don't confuse them. I don't know why you're confusing in them. There's no connection between the two. Also, the Kuki-Chin tribes are legally accepted in India. They are a part of Indian state of Mizoram. A lot of their people, a lot of their tribal connections are in Mizoram. With Rohingyas, the government has never said that they are a part of India. The government has always maintained that we will not allow them to settle in India, although that has not happened. But that is the main difference between the two. It's not the two ways around. Perfect. This brings me to the end of today's webinar. I hope it was helpful. This was our attempt to cover main current affairs from the last week or so. Have a good night. I hope all your preparation is going well. Make sure that you give all the prelims test as on schedule, even though your preparation might not be up to the mark in certain tests, but only when you test yourself, you'll be able to see how prepared are you. Perfect. Thank you so much for watching. Bye-bye. Have a good night. Jai Hind.